Today, we're diving into a fascinating book, Dr. Eric Berne's classic, Games People Play. This is the one that pulls back the curtain on the hidden psychological rules that, well, pretty much run our lives. It shows how our everyday chats can turn into these predictable, and let's be honest, often super frustrating scripts.
You know the feeling, right? You're stuck in a loop having the exact same argument with your partner or a friend, and it feels like you're just reading lines from a script. It always ends the same way, and everyone walks away feeling annoyed. Well, Berne's work gives us this amazing lens to see exactly why that's happening and, even better, how we can start to break that cycle. So, to get to the bottom of this, we have to talk about the core idea in the book, which is called transactional analysis. Think of it as a way to look past the actual words we're saying and see what's really going on underneath the surface of our conversations. The whole thing starts with this foundational concept called the ego state. Now, don't let the name intimidate you. It's just a specific mindset we slip into during a conversation, a whole package of feelings and behaviors that go together. The big idea here is that we aren't just one single static person all the time. Nope. We're actually a dynamic collection of these different states. So Berne breaks it down into three main ego states that he says exist inside every single one of us. He calls them the parent, the adult, and the child. Getting to know these three inner voices is basically the key to unlocking and decoding pretty much all of our interactions. First up, we've got the parent. This is like a recording of all the rules, values, and behaviors we soaked up from our parents or whoever raised us. It's that voice in your head that's always telling you what you should and shouldn't do. A phrase like this, that is the parent ego state in action. It's an automatic, pre-programmed rule. It has nothing to do with whether you're actually full or not, right? It's just a should that we absorbed years and years ago. Next is the adults. This is our rational, logical self, the part of us that just processes data. The adult ego state is basically a computer. It takes in information, analyzes it objectively, and then makes a decision based purely on the facts. See, that is a perfect example of the adult at work. There's no emotion. There are no old rules from childhood. It's just a pure, objective calculation to get a specific result. And finally, there's the child. This is where all our feelings live. It's got all our emotions, our impulses, and our reactions from when we were little. It's the source of our spontaneity, our creativity, our joy, but it's also where our tantrums and fears hang out. And that is the child speaking, loud and clear. It's pure emotion and desire. It couldn't care less about responsibility or what might happen later. It's all about what it wants, right here, right now. Okay, so we've got these three distinct voices rattling around inside of us. But what happens when your three voices start talking to someone else's three voices? Well, this is where things can either go really smoothly or they can go completely off the rails. Berne calls the most basic unit of a conversation a transaction, and is really simple. One person says something, that's the stimulus, and the other person replies, that's the response. That little back and forth, that's one transaction. Now, these transactions can go one of two ways. On the left, you see a complementary transaction. The lines of communication are parallel. You say something from one ego state, and you get the expected response back. The conversation just flows. But on the right, that's a crossed transaction. The wires get all tangled up, communication breaks down, and suddenly, you're in a conflict. So let's walk through a super simple example. Here we have a straightforward rational question. It's one person's adult asking for information from another person's adult. The expected response is something logical like, yeah, it's on the kitchen counter, or nope, haven't seen it. But whoa, look at this response. Instead of a calm adult-to-adult reply, we get a defensive reaction from the child ego state talking up to what it thinks is a critical parent. This person isn't hearing a simple question for data. They're hearing an accusation. And just like that, boom, the conversation is totally derailed and is turned into a fight. So when these kinds of cross transactions happen again and again in a really predictable pattern, we move out of the realm of simple conversation and into what Berne famously called psychological games. This is the key. A game often gets kicked off by a crossed transaction that invites everyone to start reading from that same old, tired script. Right? So a game isn't just a simple mix-up. It's a pattern, and it has a hidden agenda. On the surface, two people might be talking about, say, where the wallet is, but underneath, they're actually trying to accomplish something else entirely.
And the crazy thing is, it almost always ends with both people feeling bad in a very familiar, predictable way. That bad feeling, that's the payoff.
To really make this clear, let's break down one of the most classic games Berne talks about. It's called If It Weren't For You. And I'd be willing to bet you've either seen this one played or, hey, maybe even played it yourself.
Let's look at the anatomy of this game. The thesis, that's what you hear out loud, is I could be so great if only you weren't holding me back. But the real aim, the hidden motive, is to blame the partner for their own inaction, which is really just masking a deeper fear, like a fear of failure. The players fall into their roles. One person is the restricted victim and the other is the overbearing partner. And the psychological payoff? The victim gets to feel justified, gets sympathy, and most importantly, gets to avoid doing the scary thing they secretly don't want to do anyway.
So you might be wondering, if these games are so toxic and destructive, why on earth do we play them? Well, it turns out they actually serve some really important, though often pretty unhealthy, psychological purposes for us.
So why do we do it? For one, games give us a predictable way to structure our time and interactions. They also give us a hit of emotional validation. Berne called these strokes, and it doesn't matter if it's positive or negative attention, it's still attention. Games also reinforce our deepest beliefs about ourselves and the world, like, see, I knew I was a victim. And maybe one of the biggest reasons, they help us avoid real, genuine intimacy, which for a lot of us can feel incredibly scary and vulnerable.
Now, of course, we gotta keep a balanced perspective here. Some critics argue that Berne's theory can be a little too cynical, making it seem like all our relationships are just a series of manipulative strategies. They make a good point that plenty of our interactions are genuine and don't have some secret motive. It's a great reminder that transactional analysis is a really powerful tool, but it's not the only tool for understanding each other.
And that really brings us to the final, most important question. Once you understand the parent, adult, and child inside of you, and once you can start spotting the scripts of the games you play, you actually gain the power to change the conversation. You can choose to step out of the game. So the real question I want to leave you with is this. What games are you playing? And what would happen if you decided to stop?